Hi, and welcome back to the Mom and Mind podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kat. And on this episode, I am talking with Rebecca Redden. She's going to be talking with us about infertility and more specifically, infertility and its impact on the couple. So it's a rich conversation and one that we need to be having more often. Rebecca is a chartered psychologist with the Psychological Society of Ireland, licensed marriage and family therapist, and certified in perinatal mental health through Postpartum Support International. She is also the founder of Perinatal Mental Health Institute that provides education and training around mental health challenges within the transition to parenthood for perinatal providers worldwide. She's a member of the Irish Fertility Counselors Association and has specialized training in the unique impact of fertility and fertility challenges. She is also a board member for the Psychological Society of Ireland's Special Interest Group for Perinatal and Infant Mental Health and Ireland's support coordinator for Postpartum Support International. We're going to be talking about the impact of fertility and what couples can do who are navigating fertility challenges to strengthen their relationship. So let's dive in and meet Rebecca. Welcome, Rebecca. Thank you so much for being here.
I am absolutely delighted to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Happy to be talking with you about a really difficult topic, and one that definitely needs to be talked more about is infertility and all of the many things that come along with it. While we can't touch on every single aspect of that today, we're going to try and dig in. Just to frame our chat today, would be great to start with what are some kind of foundational knowledge, understanding of what infertility is and what does that mean?
Really great place to start. And I think that it's important to acknowledge all the things we talk about today, the different layers, the different pieces. Each individual and each couple is going to navigate different constellations of these pieces. And so as I talk about things, whether it's in connection with fertility treatments or around some of the challenges that can show up in couples, I think we want to acknowledge that just if somebody is on a fertility journey, if somebody is having their own journey, their own process, just because we talk about it today doesn't mean that they are going to experience that challenge or that will be coming up for them. Because I do think that a lot of the things we're going to talk about today can feel like a lot because they are a lot. And so we want to really make sure that anybody who's listening, we add a little softness into that. When we're talking about what is infertility, and it's a term that I do hear more and more. We are talking about it a little bit more. We might know somebody who went through IVF or had some troubles with conception. Oftentimes after the process, they share that piece. But there's still a huge amount of secrecy. So if anyone listening doesn't know a lot about fertility or infertility or challenges associated with fertility, it's really okay because we aren't really talking about it. So first thing I want to acknowledge is a statistic that 1 in 6 individuals struggle with their fertility. So this is not a rare complication. This is not something that we just see in a distant cousin. This is something that if you don't actively know someone who's navigating fertility challenges, it's just because they haven't shared that with you. This is so common. We define infertility as the not getting pregnant naturally without assistance for if you've been actively trying for more than a year. So that can elicit a lot of different responses from people. Some people it's, there's some breathing room. I have a whole year before I have to get worried or I have to be concerned about that. Other people's response is, wait, I have to deal with this for a whole year before I can get help or seek more answers. And so it can be quite stressful. The only caveat I'll add to that is there's general recommendations after the age of 35 for women. If you're struggling to conceive after 6 months, that's when the recommendation changes and says, hey, let's go in and check this out, just because of some time frame issues and some kind of biological shifts that start to happen around 35. The door doesn't close at 35. It's not an automatic piece, but it's some point where we say, hey, let's dig a little bit deeper, a little bit earlier. So when we're talking about that inability to conceive naturally, we do have to be actively trying during that time. We're going to talk a little bit about that trying to conceive period and the stresses of that, I'm sure, because it is absolutely part of the process. But after that point, typically about 80% of the population who is actively trying to conceive will have conceived within a year of trying to conceive. So that's about our 1N6.
Oh, yep.
If we extend that to 2 years, about 90% of individuals and couples that are trying to conceive will conceive naturally. There are about that 10% that even after 2 years of trying are not going to conceive naturally. And there are lots of different reasons for that.
Loads and loads of reasons. I mean, that's part of the challenge, right?
Yeah.
Is to try and figure out what's going on.
And that's where we go from that either 6 months if we're over 35 or if we're under 35. Again, it's tied to women and women's age instead of maybe male partner's age because of some of the biological pieces, which can really push that like age pressure and stress associated with the biological clock ticking.
Yep. Yep.
But at that point, we start to do some more investigations. Those investigations usually include things like blood tests where we're checking for things like infections that could be causing some challenges with conception, where we might be looking at hormonal levels, where we're looking at some of the hormones like follicle stimulating hormone and AMH and these different components that all click together to help support fertility and conception. This is the point where we might get some really clear reason of, oh, that's why, that's what's going on. And it might leave us with more questions. Everything looks fine. Why are we having a hard time?
Yeah.
We might then move to further, more in-depth testing where we're testing for some more kind of structural causes of fertility challenges. This might be perhaps issues or concerns with the uterus or issues or concerns with the eggs being able to come down that fallopian tube down into the uterus for conception. We might be looking for men at kind of sperm quality, whether or not there's good motility, so the ability to move and get to the egg. So we're looking at any structural pieces that might be impacting the ability for that couple to get pregnant. Sometimes we can do a lot of investigation, and there are a lot of pieces, both for actually both partners, that can impact fertility at this point. And yet sometimes there's still unexplained fertility. We might have this really challenging term of, we don't know. We don't know why you're not getting pregnant.
Yeah, that's tough.
And sometimes I find individuals and couples almost find it easier if there is a reason.
Yeah.
Oh, I have silent endometriosis. I have low sperm count. I have challenges with an infection that I can clear with antibiotics. Oh, okay, there's something I can do here. Whereas the impact on the individual and the impact on the couple from that unexplained infertility, ooh, that's a hard thing to hold.
Right. Even from by the time you get to that point, it's been stressful the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe even leading to depression, leading to anxiety, if not just stress, and definitely like stress on the individual, but stress on the couple. Yeah. So what are some things that you see? Again, I know we haven't gone through the full process of getting to the point of actual conception or not. But just to take a quick pulse check on what's happening to the people in this process as this goes on.
Oh, goodness, yeah. Stress, I think, is something that I talk about with my clients all the time in a wide variety of ways. One, I will say everybody on a fertility journey has either thought or been told to just relax.
Ew.
Just relax and it will happen.
Yeah.
This is not how it works. That's not how it functions. Yeah. But also, no one in the history of humankind has ever relaxed from being told to relax. It's just not how it works. Actually, being told to relax tends to increase stress.
No kidding.
And so that idea of just relax is pretty unrealistic. And I tell my individuals and couples when they come in that actually what we want to do is we want to acknowledge and recognize that this feels hard because it is hard. They are going through something really challenging. So, of course, there's going to be stress. It makes sense. I think it's important to acknowledge that we have found that a diagnosis of infertility, explained or unexplained, has been found to have the same impact on our mental health and our well-being as receiving a cancer diagnosis.
Oof.
That's a huge impact.
Yeah.
And yet we're supposed to sweep it under the rug and keep going and just to not acknowledge it, not share it with anyone. Can we imagine experiencing a cancer diagnosis and not telling anyone?
Oof. Wow. Wow. That perspective is really useful to put into sharp focus how stressful it is. And also, it is not treated with that kind of gravity at all.
No, it really isn't.
People start saying, why don't you just? And you wouldn't say that. I'm sure people who have cancer get unsolicited advice all the time. But there's a particular assault, if you will, on people going through this that hear all of this. Why don't you just? And if you did, then my aunt tried that. That is so overwhelming.
So much. And particularly, it's very hard to receive that from external sources. So a well-intentioned aunt who doesn't recognize that, don't worry, we've tried everything. I've stood on my head and quacked like a duck in order to try and get pregnant, and it's not working.
Right.
But it's particularly painful if that advice, that lens, is coming from our partner.
Ooh.
Yeah. Our partner might be the one who'd say, just relax, it will happen. Maybe if we just didn't try for a while, which there's some merit to that, but not maybe what we want to hear. Or stop getting so worried about it. Or you're stressing too much. You're focusing on it too much. You're researching too much. There can be this dynamic in relationship where that unsolicited, just relax, is coming from our partner. And that can cause a lot of conflict.
Yeah. Oof. Yeah, that's tough. The level of conflict for couples during this period of time. It would be hard to be on the same page about everything all the time anyways. But I think there's a particular challenge with this when I think, let's say if you're the person who's trying to be pregnant, sorry, as a couple, you're trying to have a child, but if you're the person it's happening within their body, that's what I want to say. It almost can feel like it's all your fault and all your responsibility, even though we know scientifically it's not and physiologically it's not. But because everything is happening within your body, it's like this. It's more stress. It's more pressure. You're more likely to feel like things are your fault.
Absolutely. And there's a long history of that. If we look at the atrocities that happened to women and birthing people around this kind of responsibility, it's huge. Responsibility for pregnancy, responsibility for gender. There was a lot of undue responsibility put on women around that. And we carry that in our body. We carry that responsibility with us as women and birthing people that, this is my responsibility. It's my job to get pregnant. It's my job to keep that pregnancy. And when we struggle with our fertility, there is this huge sense of failure and biological failure that can feel really heavy and might be hard for particularly male partners, maybe not, to struggle to understand that because they are not living that experience. I think that this can happen as early as, okay, maybe we've decided that we want to try building our family. Okay, there's maybe some excitement and some fun and we're ready to dive into this. And then maybe the first cycle or the second or the third, the kind of intended birthing partner is sitting there going, wait a second, this isn't happening. The stress goes up, the worry goes up, maybe catastrophizing or worst case scenario coming. Will I ever get pregnant? And their partner saying, we've only been trying for a month, 2 months, 3 months. Why are you so worried about this? It will happen. Just relax. And although those comments are often really well intended, attempt to console or calm down or provide reassurance, oftentimes that falls really flat for someone who is riding this roller coaster of paying attention to what's happening in your body.
Every day.
Is that pregnancy symptom? Is that evidence that I'm pregnant? And we can get to the point where we're so sure it's this month. We're so sure. We start tracking out those timelines. We start thinking about, oh, if I was pregnant this month, my due date would be this month, and I'd be before this summer when it's too hot, since I won't have to be pregnant when it's hot, or it's a good time for me to take time off work, or
right.
And then when our cycle starts, there's this huge amount of grief.
Yeah.
And we can feel really alone in that grief if our partner is not understanding of that perspective. But we've only been trying for 2 months. Of course, it's normal that it's not happening.
Right.
Without this recognition of this huge emotional roller coaster that one partner is going through.
Yeah. Yeah, that is tough because to your point, there's a lot of internal process that unless you're sharing every single detail, which nobody can, it would be hard for the partner to know that's the process that's happening. But also if you feel like you're in a process together, you also want to be asked or thought of, or like, how's this impacting you? How's it affecting you? Which would be great. But yeah, again, to your point, they're not always on the same page, or that's not always available in the partner.
Absolutely. And having done this work with couples for a long time where we're really in the thick of the fertility stuff, I find some of those challenges that we might have had in our relationship prior to our fertility challenges that maybe were some of those things that we were able to manage effectively or were a bit of an annoyance, but we were able to get through it, or maybe we haven't navigated a major stressor together before. And the stress of the fertility journey just exacerbates that. It makes it much more intense. And so maybe if it was hard for us to talk about tender topics, or one partner had a challenging time with just holding difficult emotions, or maybe we came from a family where we don't talk about feelings, or we just soldier through and do what needs to be done. Suddenly, those kind of challenges in our relationship become big pieces. And I think it's important to acknowledge, and I want to say this early because we're going to be talking about lots of challenges in relationships. When relationships do navigate this challenge together, when there's the cracks and there's the challenges and there's the tough moments and there's the arguments and there's the coming together, when we do successfully navigate our fertility journey together, we actually see really high rates of relationship success after fertility challenges, when relationships stay together during that, because we have weathered a huge storm together.
That makes a lot of sense.
We've learned how to get through the hard stuff. We've learned how to talk about it. We've learned how to meet each other's needs because we had to, because otherwise it was going to fall apart. So I like to tell my couples, like, this is really hard. And if you're doing it in a really loving, compassionate way, building and strengthening your relationship, it's really going to serve you going forward.
But yeah, that's really important because you need something to hold on to. You don't really know how this is going to end up. The hope is that you go through a process once and you have a child at the end. But you don't really know that. And if there's a way to have the relationship be this secure base and know that is going to be there, it for sure would be easier to weather the ups and downs, even within the relationship, not just the am I pregnant, am I not, grief, how do I try again, how do I gear up to do this again. You really do need as strong as possible connection,
and that fostering, and I call it watering the plant of our relationship in the midst of those challenges, to make sure we are really paying attention and giving food, giving nourishment to our relationship so that we can weather that well. And couples who already had really good patterns of doing that often find it a little easier to navigate these ups and downs because they have those rituals in place. This might be when we're instilling those and figuring it out. I think you mentioned something that's really valuable here, of that expectation or hope that we'll do this once and then we'll have our baby. We'll do, whether that's we'll try once, whether it's we'll do one fertility treatment, we'll do one round of IVF, we'll do an IUI, we'll do a fill in the blank with whatever treatment we might assume. If I just do this, then we'll get pregnant. If I just do this, and there can be a huge discrepancy either between couples around the expectation. Once, oh, realistically, maybe the partner that wears the logical hat is I know that typically IVF cycles have a 30% chance of success. It depends on each individual, but that's a general range. So it might not happen this time. We might need to do it again. Mm-hmm. The other partner is really hanging out in that hope and yes, this is going to be it and it's going to happen.
Yep.
And so there again can be that discrepancy.
Yeah.
Well, why were you we knew it might not happen. We knew that this might not happen. Why are you so upset?
Yeah.
That's tough.
Yeah, it is tough. That is tough. And for sure, you can know that it might not happen, but that doesn't mean you can't be sad.
Absolutely.
Like, doesn't mean you can't be mad.
And the grief process associated with all of that. One of the things that I talk about with my couples a lot is the differences in grief processing. Mm-hmm. So we might have one individual who processes grief really internally. That's going on inside of them. They're living it, they're feeling it, but they're not sharing that with their partner. Maybe this is historically how they've processed grief. This is how they've navigated it. It's worked for them. And they feel really pressured by their partner to talk about something that feels really painful, really hard, or they don't feel ready to talk about.
Yeah.
We might then have a real external processor of grief. I want to talk about it. I want to explore it together. I want to know that you feel the same way that I feel.
Yeah.
And then to them, it may seem their partner is really shut down, closed off. They won't talk to me. They won't share with me. I'm alone in my grief. It also might be possible that the partner is shut down or not engaging or not feeling the grief or we're just going to move on. We're just going to move to the next cycle. We're just going to take the next step. There are so many ways that grief is processed differently. I think that really understanding what's going on with your partner, really hearing what they need is such an important part of getting through this together.
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, sometimes people can't do that on their own for whatever, meaning within the couple on their own, and really do benefit from having a therapist who understands these dynamics to help bridge that gap, almost sometimes be an interpreter for each other. Because it's nobody wants to feel disconnected. I don't think that's the goal, but finding a way to each other to feel connected, if you have those two different languages or those two different ways of processing, can feel really hard on a good day, let alone when you're in stress.
In the midst of it. And that I love that idea of it as being an interpreter between the two individuals within a couple. And I'm a big proponent for couples counseling. I do think that we need to be not only accessing our own mental health supports, knowing that even if we're talking about things like PTSD, 41% of individuals navigating fertility treatments meet criteria for a PTSD diagnosis. We're looking at somewhere between 75 and 90%, depending on the research study, of rates of anxiety and depression. There is huge mental health impact. Yeah. And then we're trying to navigate that within the relationship as well. There's trying to navigate that alone is a lot. So getting some supports, whether that's individual counseling, whether that's couple counseling, can make the world of difference in getting through that together.
Yeah, for sure. This is, again, it's like hard to know how long you're going to be in this process. It could be one round. It could be 5 or 6 years or longer. Certainly there are people who've been trying for longer than that, who've had multiple losses or multiple tries that didn't result in pregnancy, and to weather that storm for that long takes a toll on the individual, the relationship, and everything in between.
The exhaustion is absolutely massive. And not only the exhaustion and fatigue associated with riding this roller coaster, which that trying to conceive period, it might have been 6 months when we're like, hey, something doesn't feel right and I want to go investigate this further. But many couples keep soldiering on and they're in that trying to conceive component for 1, 2, 3, 5 years. Really long time to be in this place of limbo, this place of will it happen, will it not? We might enter into fertility treatments already exhausted from the marathon we've run trying to get there.
Yep.
And that exhaustion and fatigue, it shows up in the relationship, understandably. That really heightened stress has an impact on us. Like living in our fight flight zone all of the time because I'm hoping this is the month. If I just have one more piece of information, I'm nervous, I'm anxious, I'm worried. That's a state that's really hard to maintain. And of course, it's going to impact our communication, our ability to hear our partner, our ability to invest in our relationship. It's going to take our energy. And we often find individuals on this journey, at least one, sometimes both partners are really invested in finding a lot of information out about the process. And that's really great, but not always.
Yeah.
Not always.
That's, speaking about the process, right? There's just like the overarching flow of trying to be pregnant, doing a treatment, whatever it is, and then if it results in pregnancy or not, moving forward. There's a lot of medical stuff that all of a sudden people are learning about. There's hormones, there's medications, there's doses, there's shots, there's when do you take this versus that? And can I take this shot on my own or does my partner need to help me with? There's so many details in this process that people are also dealing with that is, I think, a big layer of the stress.
The mental load associated with the fertility and conception process is huge. And let's just acknowledge like it starts before we're engaging in fertility treatment. So tracking our cycle or tracking our ovulation, paying attention to what's happening in our body, thinking about timelines. Oh, we better not try this month because 9 months from now we're supposed to be on a holiday and I can't travel while I'm heavily pregnant. The mental load starts long before. And the longer we're in that period, the more, many individuals they want to know why it's not happening. So the more nuanced and granular, we might start to research, we might start to look into maybe if I exercised a bit more or I ate these certain things, or if I made sure my stress was lower, I did acupuncture, or I did yoga, or what can I do to make sure this happens, to feel more in control of what's happening in my body and something that I cannot control. I cannot force myself to be pregnant. I cannot make that happen, which is a really hard thing for most humans. Most humans don't like not being in control. But that what I have seen in working with couples is that mental load is often carried by one partner. And just not always, but often it is the female partner, the woman partner, who is, or the birthing partner or intended birthing partner is the one who is holding that mental load. They're the one that's doing the research. They're the one that's gathering the information. They're the one that's tracking their cycle and what's going on in their body. And it's just a lot of work.
Yes.
If we move into fertility treatments, that just ups the game. The amount of, as you said, medical knowledge. We have to know, what is this procedure? What are the risks and the benefits? What are the next steps if that doesn't work? What are the questions I need to ask? And we can spend, it could be a full-time job if we look at the hours that we're spending researching, gathering information, learning about what needs to happen with injections or with medications or preparations for treatment. And that might not even include the amount of time we spend on message boards trying to kind of find that secret sauce, that one thing.
Yeah.
Because so much of that mental load is invisible. That it's not recognized socially, societally, any of that. Often, sometimes not by our partners either. That, why are you doing that? That's not needed. The doctor just told you to do that. Why is this important? all you think about is fertility. There's really two elements going on here. One partner is feeling really isolated and alone in the fact that we're feeling like they are having to do it all on their own.
Yeah.
The other partner is often also feeling isolated and alone because I feel like I've lost my partner to the fertility piece. We don't have that connection. We don't have that. We don't talk about other things. We used to love sports and we talk about sports. We used to love theater and we talk about theater. And I feel like I've lost my partner to the fertility. And there's a real disconnect there. You then add the physical load of things like fertility treatments. What physically, oftentimes that female partner or that intended birthing partner is going through the injections, the medical procedures, the medications, the hormones, and goodness, the roller coaster of hormones in that, the mood shifts.
Yep.
This is where we often see that resentment creeps in.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm doing so much. I'm doing all the research. I'm doing all of the medical procedures. I'm doing all of the work here. And you won't take your prenatal vitamins. You won't show up for this appointment. And sometimes those are pieces of conflict. Maybe that other partner doesn't realize how important or thinks it's just a vitamin. It's not going to be the thing that gets us pregnant. But it's not about the vitamin. It's about carrying some of that load and invested in this. And then when they don't show up for an appointment or they don't take their vitamins, or maybe there's some kind of challenges with providing a sperm sample to be able to do something that's their job within that, which is actually really common. It's a hard thing to do. Then that resentment creeps in. Then that anger of, I'm doing everything and you couldn't just do this one piece. And if we aren't talking about that anger, if we aren't bringing it out and actually addressing it, that can fester in relationship for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many potential challenges. These are all very common ones, or at least a lot of people experience them. That if let's say you're somebody who's just going to be trying to start the fertility process, and for one, if you don't know that these challenges are potentially ahead and you get hit by them, that's a stress. But if you do also know that they're potentially there, how do you prepare for this? Do you think that just like having information, knowing that this is possible is like a good start? How do you protect the relationship? How do you come back together? I have a lot of questions in one, but I guess kind of start with, how can you go through this with a partner, knowing this information ahead of time to protect yourself and the relationship?
Yeah.
And then I'll ask my other question next.
Really good question. Luckily, there's a lot that we can do to protect not only our relationship, but our well-being. We know that a huge protective factor in navigating any stressful thing, but definitely that fertility process, is that strong support, and that support coming from our partner, that support coming from other places. I want to acknowledge that expecting our partner to be everything for us one way or the other that's a lot to put on one person.
That's true.
I often think about and talk about with my clients building support like we would build a table. I would not build a table with one leg. Because it would be very easy to put a heavy pot on one side of that table and the whole thing goes flying. Instead, I want to put as many legs as possible on that table. Now, that doesn't mean that I have to tell everyone that I'm struggling with my fertility or that we're trying to conceive. You absolutely get to choose the balance between secrecy and support. But thinking about, are there a couple of close family members or friends that both partners can talk about their experience with? Extra benefit if that's somebody who has been through fertility challenges, who has some knowledge, or is willing to do a little learning themselves, so you don't have to be the one that educates them on all of the things, because that's a huge mental load as well to teach someone about all of that.
Yeah, for sure.
So both partners can have other supports, other people they can go to when things are hard. So we don't have to be all of the support that our partner needs in a time when we are feeling like our capacity isn't there.
Yep.
then we need to look at timelines instead of this expectation of mind reading. Oh, in my head, I think we should probably try for about 6 months. And then after that, I'd want to go for some further investigation. And my partner's sitting there being like, oh, we're just going to try until it happens. And then at 6 months, I'm like, okay, let's go and get some tests. And my partner's, what are you talking about? We don't need to do that.
Yeah.
We've hit a point of conflict. We can have some agreed upon timelines. Hey, hopefully this happens really quickly and we don't have any issues. But if we do, I'm thinking like I'd probably want to check in with somebody at the 6-month mark or the year mark, or I'm really comfortable just letting it be open-ended or whatever that is. But we want to start communicating from the get-go instead of waiting till the stress increases to talk about that. It's also really helpful to set aside some time where we do check in on this rather than it being something we have to bring up, which can be hard for multiple reasons. If we can have a time where like, we'll do a little like fertility check-in. This is something that's great to start in the beginning. But for my clients, my couples who are going through fertility treatments, it's something that I universally recommend. Can you set aside time to talk about the fertility stuff? It's really common to get into what I call a pursuer-distancer dynamic, where one individual is, maybe they're carrying the mental load, they're feeling overwhelmed and stressed about it, and their reaction to stress is activation. They want to get it sorted. They want to do the things. They want to take control of the situation. The other partner, so they start pursuing the other partner. Let's talk about this. What can we do? How this partner might get overwhelmed.
Yeah,
it's too much.
Happens.
Whew. You know what I'm going to do? This feels overwhelming, so I'm going to start distancing myself. I'm going to start avoiding. Oh, let's talk about that later. That's all you ever want to talk about. And we start chasing each other. By setting specific times that are when we talk about the fertility pieces. You can, as a couple, decide, is that once a week? Is that a couple times a week? Is that once a month? Whatever feels right for you. But this partner who really wants to talk about it knows there are dedicated times that we get to talk about it. Maybe there's some action steps that you can say, okay, you're going to research this and I'm going to research this. And that's the plan.
It's like a group project.
Mental load. Exactly. Share the mental load rather than one person having it. The partner that's in that distancer place that's feeling overwhelmed also gets benefit from that because we don't have to talk about it all the time. I'm not going to be afraid of getting midnight. I'm just drifting off to sleep, and now you want to have a really intense conversation, and I'm already halfway into dreamland. I don't have to be vigilant or aware of when those conversations might come up, and I can prepare myself for those times when I know we're going to talk about it. I always recommend that we have a out of office hours policy. So if there's something that needs to be talked about outside of those agreed upon times, we need to check. Hey, I wanted to talk about this piece coming up next week. Would you be willing to have just a quick chat about that? Either yes, or, I just got home from work. I'm really tired. I'm going to take a shower and have a snack. And then I would love to talk that through with you. It makes it much easier to have these conversations that before that can become really contentious. So if we can start that early, that's really protective because then we don't have to create new structures in the midst of a stressful situation.
Sure. I was thinking too, like speaking of creating new structures, that what you described could also be helpful if you didn't have those structures in place, but you're trying to come back together after you've been through a bunch of stuff or you're having stress, just to have these agreed upon ways to communicate. I agree. It would be much harder to establish it later, or maybe there's potentially resentment already in place, strong feelings already in place that would make it harder, but could still be really effective if you're trying to repair after a lot of the stress of fertility process.
And if a couple has caught this, oh, wait, I'm starting to feel really disconnected from you, or it feels like I'm resenting you, and they catch it early, they may be able to implement that absolutely on their own. This is something that can be implemented, again, with the support of a couples therapist who can help say, okay, we're going to make these times, but we're also going to talk about the resentment and frustration of the fact that it hasn't been this way before that. And if it's feeling really contentious, having someone else to help moderate those conversations can be an absolute game changer. It can help the relationship feel like it's coming back together, it's coming
Yeah.
back on track, and we're a team again. Remembering we started this whole process because we wanted to be a team. We wanted to start a family. We wanted to work together. So we're really just reconnecting something that was already intended.
I love that. That makes a lot of sense to try and stay connected to the original
Mm-hmm.
purpose or reason or intent there. It's a powerful way to stay connected to each other.
And I think that it's something that I talk about with my clients a lot. Like, tell me about why you decided to start a family together. Tell me about why you started trying. Tell me about what you'd hope for. Talk about, what do you miss about your partner? What do you not do now that you've been in this fertility process for so long? It's very easy during a fertility journey to put our life on hold. We will
Oh, yeah, for sure. I see that
We'll
a
buy
lot.
the house, we'll get married, we'll go on that holiday, we'll move, we'll change careers because my current job has great maternity or paternity leave, so I won't leave my job until I'm pregnant. And it can feel like everything is on hold.
That's a big part of this, for sure. That's a big
It's
part.
so hard.
Yeah.
It's so hard to sit in that. I guess that's another year that we're not getting married. I guess it's another year that we're not
Yeah.
going to visit this dream vacation that we'd hoped
Yeah.
on,
Yeah, for
or
sure.
whatever, or that I get to progress my career. And so the grief of that layer of grief shows up and grieving those pieces. It is really tempting and really common to financially put things on hold because, let's be honest, fertility treatments are not cheap. They are
Right.
really expensive. It might logically make sense. Okay, we won't go on the holiday because we're saving for the fertility treatments. And yet, on an individual and a couple's basis, putting your life on hold has a huge toll
It does.
on
Yeah,
on your mental health and well-being and on your relationship.
for
So it
sure.
is a balance. It is an agreed upon and something we want to talk about in our relationship, but especially because we don't know. We don't know, is this going to be 6 months? Is this going to be a year? Is this going to be 5 years? If we are continuously putting our life on hold, we might look back in 6 years and be like, I still haven't done those things.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm resenting my partner because you were the one who said we should put this on hold or not do this until we. It can definitely be a point of conflict. So I talk with my couples a lot around, what else have you got going on in your life outside of fertility? What else are you doing, not only individually, but as a couple?
Right.
So that failure or success in your life is not defined solely by your fertility and your conception. So I can have a really successful year at work or in our relationship, or we went on that holiday, or we got married, or we bought a new house. There's points of success that you can come back to as a couple, come back to as an individual, rather than this year, the only thing that happened was we had 2 failed treatments and I didn't get pregnant and we experienced a loss, and it can be really heavy to hold.
For sure. So, what are some things you suggest for couples who are going through this process or looking to go through the process?
So really watering the plant. So making sure you're doing things that are filling your love bank, that remind you why you like this person and why you chose to go on this journey together, and continuing rituals of connection, whether that's date nights, whether that's dreaming together, whether it's planning a holiday, whether it's something that is not fertility related. The other piece is to share the load. One of the most beneficial things I see with my couples is if we can share the load, if we can talk about, okay, this is what I'm carrying and this is what you're carrying. Can you take this off my plate? Can you maybe reduce some of this, or at least acknowledge how much work I'm doing in this? Hugely beneficial. And then remember the context. Remember that your partner is also going through something really hard. And each partner going through fertility challenges is going to have their own experience in it. I often talk about the assumption of positive intent. So we want to assume that our partner is trying their best, that we are trying to remember that they are going through something really hard, and are probably stressed and overwhelmed. Maybe if they're navigating treatments or hormonal shifts, that they are also navigating the roller coaster of hormones, they're navigating the roller coaster of grief, that actually it might make a lot of sense that they are staying up until midnight to research things. It might make a lot of sense that they're feeling overwhelmed and shut down. It might make a lot of sense that they want to talk about it all the time.
Right.
That actually it's about fostering the connection within the stress rather than just pretending it's not happening or making it the sole focus.
Right. Those are beautiful recommendations and things to really think about and reflect on and take to your partner, or hey, let them listen to this episode so they can hear about it as well. Yeah, I thank you so much for spending time with us today and walking through all this really important stuff for couples going through this fertility process, to hear themselves and see themselves reflected in what you've talked about today.
Thank you so much for making the time for it. It's such an important topic. I'm really glad we got to have this chat.
To find out more from Rebecca, go to perinatalmentalhealthinstitute.com. You can also find her on Instagram at perinatal_mh_institute. And if you know somebody who could benefit from hearing this conversation, please do send this along. The more we share episodes like this and conversations like this, the more information gets out there, the less stigma there is, the more we can normalize that people really do go through these challenges and that they can get the help that they need to feel better. And while you're there sharing this episode, be sure to give this podcast a star rating or a review so that others who are looking for this resource can understand from your perspective how it was beneficial for you, so they can decide for themselves if it is for them also. Once again, I thank you so much for being here. Until next time.